Your rent is now $4,000 per month, my landlord said. My mom, market rate. I'd been paying $800 for 5 years. I said, okay, and moved out that weekend. What she didn't know, I'd been the one paying her mortgage all along through a third-party company. When I paused payments and the bank called her about the $127,000 in arrears. It was 8:45 p.m. in my mom's dining room in Sacramento, the same room where she used to make me sit at the end of the table so my little brother could have more space to talk. The overhead light was too bright, the kind that makes every wrinkle in a tablecloth look like a problem you caused. She'd put out the nice plates, cream-colored porcelain with gold edges, like that would make what she was about to say sound reasonable. The smell of roasted chicken hung in the air, mixed with lemon cleaner and the faint, old house scent of dust baked into baseboards. Her place always smelled like control. My mom, Marilyn, sat with perfect posture, hands folded, a legal pad beside her like we were in a meeting and not having dinner. I took one bite, chewed, and waited. She never did small talk without an agenda. She'd ask about my day, let me relax for 3 minutes, then slide the blade in like it was housekeeping. She smiled at me the way she smiled at clerks when she wanted a discount. John, she said, I've decided we need to adjust your rent. I set my fork down carefully. The fork made a soft clink against the plate, louder than it should have been. I already paid for February, I said. I know, she replied, and waved one hand like that detail was cute. This is for March onward. I watched her pick up her pen. She uncapped it slowly like she'd rehearsed the moment. Then she flipped the legal pad around, pushing it toward me across the table. There it was in thick black ink. New rent for $1,000 per month. Underlined twice. I blinked once, then again, like the numbers might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. 4,000? I asked. She tilted her head, patient, like she was explaining math to a child. Market rate, she said, you've been paying far below. I stared at the number and felt something inside me go very still. I'd been paying $800 for 5 years, not because I couldn't pay more. My import-export business did fine. I paid $800 because that was the deal she offered when my last relationship ended and I needed somewhere quiet. Her little downstairs unit. The temporary place. At first I'd been grateful. Then I'd been useful. Then I'd been expected. My mom didn't see it that way. To her, I was a tenant who'd gotten too comfortable. A son who needed to be reminded who owned what. I looked up at her. She was watching my face like it was a stock ticker. You can't be serious, I said. But my voice stayed calm. It surprised even me. She didn't flinch. I'm serious. Why now? She shrugged, and it was almost elegant. Costs are up. Taxes, insurance, and honestly, John, you're doing well. It's time you contributed like an adult. That word contributed like I hadn't been. Like I wasn't the reason her light stayed on when her costs mysteriously rose every year. Like I wasn't the one she called when her car made a noise, or when the plumber quoted too high, or when she needed a small bridge to get her through the month. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice into something she probably thought was kind. If you can't afford a market rate, she said, I understand, but I can't keep subsidizing you. The irony hit me so hard it almost made me laugh. But it didn't come out. My throat tightened once, then loosened. I stared at the $4,000 again, then looked at her face. It was calm, confident, certain that I would negotiate, beg, explain, perform. She wanted me to feel small in her house the way I'd felt small in every room she ever ran. I didn't give it to her. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. Her eyebrows lifted. Just a fraction. Surprise disguised quickly as victory. That's good, she said. I'll have the new lease printed tomorrow. I took another bite of chicken. It tasted like almost nothing. She kept talking, already spending my money in her head. You can set up a new automatic transfer, and I'll need first and last at the new rate. It's just standard. I chewed, swallowed, and smiled once, polite and empty. Sure, I said. I finished dinner. I washed my plate. I thanked her for the meal like I was a guest in someone else's life. Then I drove back to the little unit under her house, walked inside, and stood there in the quiet. The apartment was small but clean. My couch, my coffee maker, my work laptop on the table, the same cheap rug I'd had since my first warehouse. I looked around like I'd never really seen it before, and that was the moment something in me shifted. I didn't argue, but I started packing. By Saturday morning, my boxes were stacked like a wall. By Saturday night, my keys were on her kitchen counter in a small envelope with one line written on it. Thanks, I'm moving out. She didn't know yet, but she was about to. If you met my mother at a fundraiser, you'd think she was warm. She laughed at the right moments. She touched people's arms when she spoke. She called everyone sweetheart in that smooth, practiced way. But in our family, love was never free. Love was a currency, and my mom was a banker. Growing up, we had roles. Families like mine always do, even if nobody says it out loud. My brother Evan was the golden one. Charismatic, emotional, sensitive. The kind of kid teachers described as special. And I was the easy kid. That's what my mom always told people. John doesn't need much, she'd say with a proud smile. He's so independent. It sounded like a compliment. It was a strategy. Because once you're labeled independent, people feel less guilty when they leave you out. When Evan got his first car at 16, it was a shiny used Lexus with leather seats and a sound system that rattled the driveway. I got a lecture. Dad handed me a budgeting book and said, "Real men work for what they want." Mom nodded and added, "You'll appreciate it more." 2 months later, when Evan scraped the Lexus into a pole, Mom cried like someone died. The car was repaired within a week. When I dented my old Honda backing into a shopping cart, Dad said, "That's what insurance is for," and handed me the number of a body shop. When I got into a decent college program, my mom hugged me quickly and said, "That's nice, John." When Evan switched majors for the third time, she threw a dinner. "Your brother is finding himself," she said, like it was a sacred process. I found myself too. I found myself working night shifts in a warehouse to pay for textbooks. I found myself learning how to negotiate with freight forwarders, how to read invoices, how to tell when someone was padding a quote. I found myself realizing that the world didn't care what my mother thought I deserved. And that was oddly freeing. After college, I fell into import-export because it made sense to my brain. China was where things came from. Products, parts, packaging, furniture, kitchen, gadgets, bulk textiles. You could build a business if you understood shipping lanes and timing and contracts. I started small, sourcing simple goods, shipping containers, selling to local distributors. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't loud, I was consistent. And consistency does something powerful. It turns into money. The first time I made a real profit, I didn't buy a fancy car. I paid off debt, built savings, and kept my head down. My mom liked my success in a very specific way. She liked that she could point to it. My son John, she'd tell her friends, he works in international trade. Very impressive. But she didn't like what came with it, me not needing her. So she found ways to keep me tethered. When my dad died, my mom's world shifted. She didn't say it outright, but I could see the fear behind her eyes. The way she started scanning life for vulnerabilities. The house was hers. The mortgage wasn't small. Property taxes in California are a constant ache. And she had pride like armor. She didn't ask for help. She just started sliding problems onto my plate. At first, it was small. "John, can you cover the plumber? I'll pay you back." "John, can you handle the insurance renewal? I don't understand those forms." "John, can you help me organize my finances? It's all so confusing." Then it got bigger. One night, she called me crying, her voice tight and dramatic. "They sent a letter," she said. "Something about the mortgage. I don't understand it." I drove over. I sat at her kitchen table, the same table where she would later write $4,000 like it was nothing. And I read the paper. It was a default notice. She was behind, not by a little, by a lot. My mother, who judged everyone, had been missing payments for months. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked angry, like the bank had insulted her. "I don't want Evan to know," she said immediately. That was her first concern. Not the foreclosure, not the debt. "Evan, he can't handle stress," she added, as if that explained everything. I remember sitting there, my hands flat on the table, feeling that familiar old role settle over me, like a coat I'd outgrown. The one who handled things, the one who fixed it quietly so the golden child could stay golden. "I'll figure it out," I said. And I did. But I did it my way. I didn't hand my mom a check she'd refuse out of pride. I didn't want a screaming match about charity and respect. So I created a structure. I set up a third-party payment arrangement through a servicing company, a legitimate payment processor that could send mortgage payments on behalf of an authorized payer. I used one of my business entities, the same kind I used for supplier payments overseas. Clean paper trail, clean accounting, no drama. I had my mother sign an authorization form so the servicer would accept payments from my company. She signed it because I told her it was just so I can help you organize. She didn't read it. She never read anything she thought she deserved. For 5 years, every month, my company paid her mortgage directly through that third-party system. Every month, the servicer got paid. Every month, my mother stayed in her house and told herself she'd handled it. And because I was living in the downstairs unit, paying her $800, she told herself she was still the one providing. She loved that part. "John's lucky," she'd say. "I give him a deal." She said it like she wasn't also getting a deal, a massive one. 5 years of quiet support and 5 years of me being the adult while she played landlord queen. And in my head, I kept telling myself the same thing I'd told myself since childhood. It's fine. I can handle it. Until the night she slid that legal pad across the table. Until she said, I can't keep subsidizing you. That was the moment I saw the pattern clearly. Not just unfairness, not just favoritism. A system, a machine. Money is power, and me is the fuel. My mom noticed I'd moved out the way she noticed everything that affected her. Quickly! Not because she missed me, because she missed the control. She called Sunday morning at 8:12 a.m. I was carrying a box into my new place, like a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy. White walls, clean air, no history soaked into the floorboards. I watched her name flash on my screen. Felt the old instinct to answer immediately, to soothe, to explain. I let it ring. She texted, "Where are you?" No question mark, just accusation. Then, "You left your keys. What is this about?" Then, "We need to talk." I read them, then put my phone down on the counter like it was hot. I didn't feel angry. I felt awake. 2 hours later, she sent a photo of the envelope I'd left. "Really, John?" She wrote, "After everything I've done for you." That line was one of her favorites. It meant, after everything you've taken from me and called love. I didn't reply. By Monday, she escalated. She emailed me an actual email with a PDF attachment titled Lease Agreement March 1st. And in the email, she wrote, "Since you clearly want to be dramatic, here are the terms. If you still want the unit, sign by Friday. Otherwise, I'll list it. Market rate is market rate. I can't let you take advantage of me." Take advantage? The words sat in my chest like ice. I stared at the email for a long time, scrolling through the lease terms like they were a joke. Then I noticed there's something small, almost funny. She put my name in the tenant line as Jonathan. My mother has called me John my entire life. She wrote Jonathan when she was trying to sound official. It was her way of putting on a costume. I could picture her at her desk, drafting the email with satisfaction, telling herself she was teaching me a lesson. Meanwhile, she had no idea what she'd just done. That week, the family group chat lit up. Evan texted, "Bro, what's going on? Mom said you abandoned her." My aunt texted, "Your mom is heartbroken. You know she worries." Even my cousin, who never talked to me unless he needed something, sent, "Everything okay?" They weren't asking because they cared. They were asking because my mom had told her version first. She always did. My mom posted on Facebook on Wednesday a photo of her front porch. The caption read, "New season, new beginnings. Sometimes even family has to learn boundaries." She didn't tag me. She didn't have to. People commented hearts. People wrote to stay strong. People told her she was so generous. I watched it all like I was watching someone else's life. That was the quiet gaslighting part. She acted like she'd been wronged. Like she hadn't just tried to quadruple my rent overnight with a smile. Like the last 5 years hadn't happened. "The bank called you?" I said. "Don't play dumb," she hissed. "They're saying I'm behind. They're saying I owe." Her voice cracked. "This is your fault." I almost laughed, but I didn't. "Mom, you raised my rent to $4,000. You said it was market rate. So I moved out." "That has nothing to do with..." "It has everything to do with it," I cut in, still quiet. "You only felt comfortable doing that because you thought you held all the power." Her breathing filled the line. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying," I said. "I'm informing you." A silence opened up. "The kind that happens when the floor shifts?" "I've been paying your mortgage," I said. "For 5 years." No sound, not even Evan. Just the faint buzz of connection. And my mother trying to rebuild reality fast enough to stand in it. "That's impossible," she said. "Smaller now." "It's documented," I replied. "You signed the authorization. The payments were clean, quiet. I did it that way so you wouldn't feel like I was handing you money." Her voice turned desperate. "Why would you do that?" "Because you were in default," I said. "And I didn't want you to lose the house." A small broken sound escaped her. "And you stopped," she whispered. "Yes." "How could you?" she demanded. "After all I've done for you." There it was again, that line she used like a chain. I felt nothing in response, just tired certainty. "I'm not doing this anymore," I said. "I'm not your tenant. I'm not your safety net. If you want market rate, you can have a market relationship." Evan's voice came back, stunned. "Mom, did you know?" She ignored him. "You're going to let me lose my home." "No," I said. "You're going to deal with your home like an adult." Her voice rose, ugly now. "So, you think you're teaching me a lesson?" "I'm setting boundaries," I said. "You taught me that word, remember? You posted it." She spat. "This is spite." "It's reality," I said, "and I'm not arguing about it." She started to speak again, but I cut her off with the simplest sentence I'd ever said to her. "I'm not asking," I said. "I'm informing you." Then I hung up. For a moment, I just sat there with my phone in my hand. My coffee had gone cold. Outside my window, someone walked a dog like the world hadn't changed at all. Inside my chest, something unclenched. Not joy, relief. 3 months later, my life looked quieter. Not empty, quieter. No one barged into my space to check something. My weekends were mine. I worked, cooked, went to the gym, watched documentaries about shipping disasters that made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. The family fallout was predictable. My aunt stopped calling. My cousin posted quotes about honoring your parents. Evan surprised me. He showed up with a six-pack and a tired face and said, "I didn't know." I said, "I know." He stared at the floor and whispered, "She always told me you didn't need help." I didn't answer, because that sentence had been the cage we both grew up in. My mom tried, of course. Texts, emails, voicemails. Swinging sweet to furious. One message came a year later. Her voice controlled. "John, we need to resolve this like a family." Resolve meant one thing in her language. "Give her access again." I replied in writing, "I'm open to communication in the presence of counsel." She never answered. Because she didn't want conversation. She wanted control. And that was the new normal. No screaming war, no dramatic feud. Just distance that stayed firm. One quiet boundary, one locked door, one life that finally belonged to me. I'm on Jay's side because he didn't lash out. He simply stopped funding the disrespect. His mother treated money like a leash. And when she tried to tighten it, he quietly stepped out of range. The most satisfying part isn't the arrears number. It's that John chose paperwork over shouting, distance over drama. Sometimes the strongest consequence is just letting someone finally carry what they've been handing you for years. This story teaches us that boundaries matter, even with family. Document everything. Verbal agreements mean nothing when power dynamics shift. You can't save someone who refuses to acknowledge your help. Sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect isn't anger, but quiet withdrawal. Don't let guilt or obligation trap you into enabling dysfunction. Protect yourself legally.